السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته grade 5 عاملين إيه؟ يا رب تكونوا كلكم بخير وحشتوني جدًا، جدًا، جدًا. خلّينا النهارده نقول بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ونبدأ مع بعض في concept 1.3 changes in food webs. آمم، خلّينا نبدأ ونشوف الconcept ده بيتكلم عن إيه. طبعًا إحنا هنا في part 2 of this concept في الجزء التاني. طيب as we can see here that our lesson today or our topic today is about the life of marine organisms or the life under the sea or under the ocean. So, as we can see here, there are a lot of fish, and we have here coral reefs. I think most of you see these organisms before. So these organisms are known as coral reefs. Coral reefs. And we have a lot of coral reefs in the Red Sea in Egypt. So they are some of the most diverse, valuable ecosystems on Earth. طيب الكورال ريفز دي عبارة عن إيه؟ ودي حاجة مهمة جدا 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 لأنها بتيجي في الأسئلة كتير. هي عبارة عن ecosystems. ناس كتير منكم فاكرة إن الكورال ريفز which have different amazing colors they are plants. تمام؟ um, but they are not plants أو في ناس بتفتكرها إن هي rocks. طبعًا ده incorrect. طيب أُمّال الcoral reefs اللي هي قدّامنا دي we have amazing and beautiful different colors they are ecosystems زيّها بالضبط زي ما قُلنا قبل كده إن الdesert is an ecosystem, rainforest is an ecosystem which includes living and non-living things. So, coral reefs, they are ecosystems, the most diverse, valuable ecosystems on Earth. طيب وبعدين قال لي بما إنها ecosystem, so coral reefs provide shelter and food resources for all marine environment. خلينا نتفق مع بعض اتفاق إن كلمة marine معناها organisms that live under the water. Okay, organisms that live in sea or ocean. So بما إن الcoral reefs are ecosystems, so of course they provide shelter, which means home or environment or habitat for all marine organisms أو for all marine environment. Also, they provide food resources. يعني زي ما أنا شايفة هنا different types of fish وعندي كمان zooplankton زي ما قلنا في part 1 وعندي كتير من المارين organisms. Most of these marine organisms find their food in coral reefs. Also, most of these marine organisms, their shelter or their home is in coral reefs. Okay? So remember all of the time that coral reefs are ecosystems and they provide shelter and food for all marine environments. All right. So as we can see here, we have coral reefs. So we have to know that coral reefs live in a cold climate. الcoral reefs دي which are considered as ecosystem, they live in cold climate. So the water must be cold. Water must be what? Cold. يبقى أنا لغاية دلوقتي ما قلتش غير 3 معلومات بس عن الcoral reefs. The first one is coral reefs are ecosystems. دي كتير في الأسئلة. The second one, coral reefs provide shelter and food for all marine organisms. Number 3, they live in a cold climate. So you have to know all of these points accurately because they are very important, okay? Okay. And of course, they attract tourists. طيب نيجي هنا بقى. What are corals؟ إيه ده؟ هي corals تختلف عن الcoral reefs؟ طبعًا. اختلاف كبير جدًا. لازم تبقوا عارفين يا grade 5 إن coral reefs لمّا أقول الكلمتين مع بعض coral reefs يبقى أنا هنا باتكلم عن ecosystem كامل. تمام؟ which provide shelter and food. لكن لما أقول corals بس وقف يبقى أنا هنا بتكلم عن animals, marine animals. So what is meant by corals? They are marine animals that live in coral reefs ecosystem. أنا عارفة إن هي point ممكن تلخبط شوية، بس هي مهمة جدًا لإنها بتيجي كتير أوي في الأسئلة، نقطة tricky. تمام، يبقى coral reefs الكلمتين مع بعض دي تعتبر ecosystem كبير provide shelter and food. لكن لما أقول corals بس وقف يبقى أنا هنا بتكلم عن marine animals which live in a coral reefs ecosystem. يبقى الكي word بتاعتي هنا marine animals, marine animals. طيب what do you think? Which figure or which habitat here is healthy for marine organisms? Of course, figure A, because they are healthy, they have different and variable colors. But here, I don't know why coral reefs here have white color. I think it's unhealthy. Yes, that's correct. Figure B, it's unhealthy habitat for marine organisms. But how can coral reefs change from all of these different colors into white color? So let's explain together. What will happen if the temperature increase? We said few moments ago that coral reefs live in cold climate, so the water must be cold. What will happen is the temperature increase, the cold becomes warm or hot. So in cold water, we have healthy marine environment or we have healthy ecosystems of coral reefs, while in case of warm water, we have coral bleaching. You have to know that when the temperature of water increases and water becomes warm or hot, the color of coral reefs change into white, and of course they die, which is unhealthy habitat for all marine organisms. So this is known as coral bleaching. Repeat after me. Coral bleaching. All right. So the first step, water is warm. So when water becomes warm, coral reefs get rid of algae that living in their tissues. There are a lot of algae that live inside coral reefs. So when the water becomes warm, coral reefs get rid of algae. Number two, coral reefs turn into white color. So they don't survive, they die, which is um which is something which is unuseful for most of marine organisms. All right, so as we can see here, all of these coral reefs turn it into white color due to increasing the temperature of water, and they get rid of algae that live inside their tissues. And of course, we said that this phenomenon known as coral bleaching. So, fish and other marine organisms that depend on coral reef as a shelter and as food, they may die. So, it's not only causes a problem or causes death for coral reefs, but also it causes death for most of marine organisms which depend on coral reef as a food and as a shelter. So when habitats are destroyed, different organisms may not be able to survive. So coral reefs, they are ecosystems, which means they are habitats for most of marine organisms in the ocean or in the sea. So when habitats destroyed or damaged, different organisms will die. They cannot be survive. So in this case, we can say we have habitat loss. Habitat loss, which means there are no habitat. There is no habitat. So when habitats are destroyed, different organisms will not be able to survive. They will die, which is known as habitat loss. Remember it because it's an important scientific term. طيب خلصنا كلام عن الكورال reefs which are ecosystems وخلصنا كلام كمان عن الcorals which are marine organisms that live in coral reefs وعرفنا coral bleaching وكمان عرفنا habitat loss. خلي بالنا ان الكونسبت ده فيه expressions كتير او فيه scientific terms كتير فنركز قدر الامكان علشان نحفظها كويس ونركز على الكيوردز بتاعتها. نيجي هنا بقى. I can see we have a lot of wastes on the beach, okay? But which type of wastes? I can see a lot of plastic bottles, so we have plastic wastes. So we can say that we have plastic pollution. Plastic pollution. Plastic pollution, okay? So plastic is a transparent material. So when we throw it into water, turtles cannot differentiate between it and jellyfish. You have to know that turtles feed on jellyfish. So when we throw plastic wastes into water, they are transparent material. They look like a jellyfish. So turtles cannot differentiate between plastic and jellyfish. So it feeds on plastic, which causes suffocation to turtles and cause death. Okay, so not only turtles cannot differentiate between plastic and jellyfish, but also we have whales, seabirds, and fish. So plastic pollution is is a harmful something, or it's an important problem that we have to protect marine organisms from this type of pollution because they feed on plastic wastes because they cannot differentiate between it and between jellyfish. So how do corals get harmed by feeding on plastic? So we have here big problem, as we can say. So turtles, whales, seabirds, and fish, they get harmed from plastic pollution. Not only all of them, but also corals, which are marine animals, they can get harmed also by feeding on plastic. But how they get harmed? So as we can see here, plastic products, when we throw them into water, after a while they get broken into smaller and smaller pieces. These smaller pieces known as microplastics. Microplastics. So micro only, it means very, very small. Something that we cannot see it by our naked eyes, so we have to use a microscope to see it. So plastic products get broken into smaller and smaller pieces, which are known as microplastics. So what will happen to corals? First of all, you have to know that when corals filter the seawater to get their food, they ingest. Ingest here, it means swallow. They ingest or swallow microplastics, which are very small as the food that corals get from water. So corals get harmed. Why? Because microplastics or plastic overall, they are sharp and toxic. Remember, because it comes a lot in the exam or in questions. So why microplastics are harmful for corals? Because they are sharp and toxic. Sharp and toxic. So when corals filter the seawater to get food, they ingest or swallow microplastics because they are very small, such as the food that corals get from water. So corals get harmed. So when coral reefs also absorb microplastics, after that they will die. Type. Here we have to know how can we protect coral reefs from plastic pollution. In Egypt, coastal communities near the coral reefs applied a new way of life known as zero plastic. How can we apply this way? By replacing plastic forks with wooden ones. بدل ما أنا بستخدم plastic forks أو plastic spoons such as in restaurants, we have to replace it with wooden forks and spoons. Also, we can replace plastic bags with closed ones or by bag that made from paper as some stores make currently. So by this way, we can protect coral reefs as much as we can. What about this habitat? This is the last part of our concept, by the way. So this habitat, as we can say, it's a healthy habitat. Okay, so this is called habitat restoration. We have here small plants that we have to care. We have to take care of them to grow. So, what is meant by habitat restoration? It means the process of returning habitat back again to its natural state. If we have habitat loss, okay, or if we have damaged or destroyed habitat, we can return back this habitat again it's into its natural state by stopping pollution, by growing new plants. So the key word here is returning habitat back. Returning habitat back. So this is called habitat restoration. Habitat restoration. Okay, what about nursery? It's an area in the sea where scientists take care of small coral reefs until they grow up. So, if we have coral bleaching, we can restore this habitat again when scientists take care of small coral reefs until they grow up. This area known as nursery. Nursery. So, the key word here is area and small coral reefs. Okay, what about these scientists? They are known as ecologists. Ecologists. Again, ecologists. So they are scientists who work on restoration projects, who work on returning back habitat again to into its natural state to have a stable environment or a stable habitat for plants and other animals to survive. So here, which figure represents habitat which is destroyed? Of course, figure A, the first one. So can we return back this habitat again into natural state? Yes, of course. And this is called restoration ecology. Restoration ecology. So it means rebuilding habitats that are damaged. Rebuilding habitats that are damaged. Thank you for watching and listening. Shukran.